You manage to snap out of your trance just in time to hear the lock click in the door, and you look down suddenly to realize that you are meditating just slightly off the ground. You smirk to yourself, inspired by the fact that you could apparently do something seemingly so advanced without even actively trying to now, as you turn to face the person entering the room. It's a stormtrooper, as you expected, and he is carrying a tray of food. "Hi there," you say as genially as possible as you climb to your feet. "Actually, I think I'd like to eat that in Kylo Ren's room. Will you take me there?" The stormtrooper snorts from under his helmet, and you feel a bubble of frustration rise up in your chest. You quickly try to push it away, knowing it will do you no good. You close your eyes for the briefest of moments as you center yourself, waving your hand in front of his face. "You will bring me to Kylo Ren's room." There's a brief pause, and then, stiffly, "I will bring you to Kylo Ren's room." You don't want to say anything more to counteract it, and so you just turn and follow the stormtrooper as he leads you down the hall, carrying your plate of food in his hands. You walk through several corridors, and you try to picture the expressions on the faces of the people beneath each helmet as you pass them. It's not long at all until you reach another part of the ship, where he stops outside an unmarked door that doesn't look particularly any more or less different than the others. "You will unlock this door for me," you order. He hesitates for a moment, and you can hear him stammering from underneath his helmet. I don't... You feel a surge of frustration go through you, and you put your palm flat against the door, concentrating for a hard moment before the door finally unlocks. That was twice now that you had gotten frustrated in such a short span of time, and you realized it was because you were in such close proximity to Kylo Ren. The Force bond was starting to have a stronger pull on you again, and you would have to take back control of it. You could not risk being influenced by him. Instead, you had to turn the tables and make sure that it was your positive emotions that would prevail and influence him instead. You push the door open with your foot and thank the stormtrooper as you take the tray off his hands. He's still standing there, arms out in front of him, as you close the door with a satisfied smirk on your face. The room is small, probably because it's just that, a room. There's a bed in the corner of the room that was sloppy and unmade, probably just a little bit smaller than the large bed you had to yourself at the Resistance base. There were clothes and different items, some of which looked like machine parts, scattered all over the floor, and there was a door just past the bed that held a bathroom. You could tell by the sound of the shower water streaming down from the faucet within. You had walked in while Kylo Ren was in the shower. That could only go well. With nowhere else to sit, you sit down on the floor and begin to eat your food. There isn't much of it, and you down it in minutes, immediately feeling spoiled by what you were being fed at the Resistance. Ladson hadn't liked the food much, but you had to admit that it wasn't bad. It was much better than whatever slop they wanted to feed you here, anyway. Putting the tray neatly on the floor near the side of the door, you walk over to his bed and sit down on it as quietly as you can before you stretch out, putting your head on his pillow. It smells like him, but you can't help but feel sort of out of place, and you sit up quickly, your pulse suddenly racing. You hadn't exactly expected him to be here, but here he was, taking a shower, and he was going to walk out of that room exposed and vulnerable. You take a side glance back towards the door and idly wonder if you should just forget this whole thing. They probably still had the TIE fighter you arrived in sitting in the hangar. You could probably just mind trick your way into escaping this place and fly home. But, right as you're about to seriously consider the idea, the shower water stops and you know you can't go anywhere. He senses you now. You can feel it, and you sit cross-legged on his bed as you turn towards the bathroom door, anxiously awaiting for it to open. For a minute, you idly wonder if you should close your eyes or look away, but you don't want to risk turning your back on him and getting struck from behind, which, to be fair, was probably what you would have done if the situation was reversed. Eventually, The door opens, and you mentally brace yourself as he steps out, a towel wrapped around his waist. Even still, your eyes rake over his torso. He has a few more scars than he had before, and you can see that the burn mark from Ray's lightsaber had traveled down his jaw and the base of his neck, where it stopped just below his collarbone. You're suddenly sobered by the thought that you're not sure how you could really be with him anymore. Every time you looked at him, you would just be reminded of how terrified she had been of him when she was fighting for her life. You hated to see it there, and you hated that you almost seemed to take it personally. You'd always ignored the harm that Kylo had done to others in the past, under the guise of sweeping generalizations, and the universe would no longer permit you to do that. Now, whenever you looked at him, it would constantly serve as a reminder of the awful things he had done, of the awful person that he had become. And, if you really wanted to stay with him, you would have to be confronted with that every day for the rest of your life. Nevertheless, you try to shake it off as you look up at him, forcing a quick smile to your lips. "Hi there," you say brightly. "I like your bed. Very comfortable. Still not as comfortable as the big one we used to share, but it's nice." He narrows his eyes as he towers over you, but you're not in the least bit intimidated by him. "How?" "Don't ask questions you already know the answers to," you tell him, and he sighs as he walks further into the room, turning over clothes on the floor as if he's trying to find something that's clean. You were right about tuckering him out. He seems a bit defeated now, tired, and although part of you wants to comfort him, a much darker part of you knows that it will be very easy to manipulate him right now. He picks up a black piece of cloth and then throws it back down to the ground in frustration. "Why are you here?" You purse your lips for a moment as he turns around to face you. "Remember way back when you told me you wouldn't mind probe me if I was honest with you?" He inclines his head in the stiffest of nods. "Well, if I'm honest with you now, can I stay here with you? I don't want to go back to that cell." He crosses his arms over his massive chest as he appraises you, and you can't help but notice that the towel is staying in place despite the fact that it looks like it isn't wrapped very tightly around him. Idly, you wonder if it's the Force keeping it up, but you can't worry about that now. Even still, he catches you looking, and a satisfied smirk pulls at the corners of his lips. "I'll consider it." "Perfect," you say as you get to your feet. It's so much easier to talk and ramble on while you walk. "The reason I came here was to get answers. That's it. That's all I want. I mean, there's other things I want, but I'll settle for answers." "Did the Resistance send you to spy on me?" he asks curiously, tilting his head to one side. "No," you reply dismissively, waving your hand in the air. "I didn't come here because of the Resistance. No one sent me. I just came here because I need answers, and you're the only one who can give them to me." Kylo just sighs and shakes his head as he gestures for you to continue. "Good. Now, first, I need to know." You center yourself in front of him. "Did you really love me?" "You stole a captured fighter, borrowed, to come here to ask if I loved you?" He seems incredulous. "Who's watching Anakin now?" You feel a tiny spark of elation bubble in your chest. He had called Annie by his name, not the boy or the child, but he had finally called his son by his real name. Either he was more worn down than he was yesterday, or you were having a stronger influence on him than you thought. "He's with Ladson," you reply simply. "He's being well cared for." "Has he started his Force training yet?" Kylo asks, and you shake your head. "I said I'm the one who came here for questions," you tell him. "Although I am glad to see that you're taking an interest in your son." Kylo scowls at you, and you feel a momentary flash of rage emitting off of him like a heat wave. It weakens your resolve just a little bit, but you won't let him win this. "If you want to see your son," you continue, putting your fingertips to your own temple, "that's fine with me. Have a look." You won't let me in, Kylo says quietly. You wouldn't risk it. But you want to get in, right? You ask as you take a small step towards him. And you remember how you got in last time, don't you? When we were in my room, back on base, late that night. A flicker of recognition passes over his features as he recalls the memory, and with it, all of the emotions associated with it. He looks weak, unsure, but just for a moment before his gaze hardens. Even still, that spark had been igniting, and you could feel the tension growing between you as if it was a real, tangible rope that was pulling you together. You bite your lip as you glance back down at the towel around his waist before back up at him. You do remember that, don't you? I do, he says quietly, his expression giving nothing away. Then you take another step towards him, your eyes still locked on his face. You honestly weren't sure what you were doing anymore. You knew what a secret part of you wanted, what the part of you had wanted for the past several years, and you were so close to having it again. You wouldn't, Kylo says, and at first you're not quite sure what he means before he continues. You wouldn't touch me. Like this? With a scar? After you've heard about everything that I've done? There is no part of you that still cares for me. You blink at him, and you know that the Force bond is definitely reconnecting between you now, because you can feel your anger bubble to the surface. After everything you had been through for him, and he really just thought you didn't care about him anymore? Just like that? As if your feelings were just a switch that you could toggle on and off? You can feel the anger flare like a fire in your chest, and there's nothing you can do to snuff it out. I waited there for you for years, you tell him. Pined over you for years, just waiting, and you let me down. You let me down, and I went to the Resistance, and I tried to build a new life there. Believe me, I tried, but I still kept thinking about you, and I hated it. I hated every minute of it, listening to all those people talk about the horrible things that you did, having to listen to Annie ask if we were ever going to see you again. After what you said to me, I came here to see if there was still a chance for us. A chance that even though you never came back, there was still some part of you that still cared. And yet, you treat my feelings as a weakness and treat me with hostility and contempt. And then on top of that, you have the gall to say that I don't even feel anything for you at all? Fuck you! You put both hands on his chest and shove him backwards. He takes a tiny step back to steady himself, but otherwise doesn't move. Fuck you! You put your hands on his chest to shove him again, when suddenly he leans forward and grabs your head in both hands, kissing you firmly. You open your mouth in surprise and kiss him back, your hands fisting in his hair as you pull him closer to you. I hate you, he snarls against your lips. You press your forehead into his as you wrap both arms around his neck, your fingers bumping over the bit of scarred flesh. No, you don't, you tell him between vicious kisses that made you crave him all the more. It was like you had been denying yourself a drug that you were finally letting back into your system. You wish you did. You wish you could hate me. You wish you could bring yourself to kill me, but you can't. I can, Kylo says as he shuts his eyes, but you can tell his resolve is weakening. You push yourself against him, running your fingers down both sides of his face, ignoring the bit of pink raised flesh across his right cheek. Do it then, you say as you gently run your fingertips along his back, placing gentle kisses along his collarbone. You can hear Kylo growl low in his throat as he grabs you by the shoulders and pushes you roughly away from him, holding you at arm's length. Why did you come back? He barks, and you can tell that he's ready to believe whatever you tell him. You look him in the eye and work up all the honesty you can muster. For you. So, obviously, as you can expect, This is when it gets really not safe for work. There's a lot of internal monologuing on how she doesn't really care about Poe or the Resistance anymore now that she's back with Kylo again. And I'm just scrolling through this. There's a lot here. Just reading through this, trying to get to a bit of conversation here at the bottom. At the very end, he makes a move like he's trying to get inside of her head, and then eventually doesn't go through with it. So I'll start there. No, Kylo, you plead desperately. Right now, you're weak, beyond weak. You're helpless, and for a moment you're afraid that while you were trying to manipulate him, he was the one who had been playing you. But didn't you invite that, though? Hadn't you teased him, made him remember how he broke through the first time? You had been hoping that he would touch you like this again, but a large part of you didn't actually believe that he would. Kylo, please don't. He grimaces as he finds his own release inside of you and lets his hands drop as he collapses with his forehead pressing into your shoulder. The only sound you can hear, besides your combined frantic gasps of air, is your heart pounding in your chest, both from exertion and from what he could have done, but didn't. You need to leave, Kylo says quietly. You need to stay as far away from me as possible. No, you say firmly as you gently ease off of him, using his proffered hand for support, and you refuse to let go of it as you intertwine your fingers together and tug him down so he's lying on the bed beside you. I don't want to leave you. You have Anakin to think about, Kylo says in a hushed tone. You need to get back to him. Then come back with me, you say childishly, making sure to use your intonation to imply how utterly ridiculous it would be for him to willingly come with you back to the Resistance. If you could get him to agree to just coming back, it would make things so much simpler. But then again, you don't want to arouse his suspicions as to what you were really planning. Kylo just snorts. You know I can't. You bite your lip, but decide to go ahead and say what you want to say anyway. Then why don't I go back and get Annie and come back here to be with you? That's what you wanted, right? He's silent for a long time as he just trails his fingertips up and down your side, lost in thought, and at that moment you can feel him. Really feel him. You don't know if it's love. It's not the same feeling that you two shared before, but you know he cares for you, deeply, and still wants you to be safe. That was good enough for you. Didn't you want me here? He closes his eyes and pulls you just a little bit closer. It's amazing how the Resistance and everyone there seems like a far-off memory to you now as you're here curled up in his arms. It's like the world finally made sense again, and that's when you realize you had been looking directly at his face, at his scar the entire time you two had fucked or made love or did whatever it is that you did, and you hadn't really noticed it at all. You need to leave, he says firmly, and his head dips forward in a tiny nod as if to confirm this to himself, before the Supreme Leader realizes that you're here. You avoid his eyes as you move a little closer to him. But I just got here. I can't, I'm not ready to leave you yet. Can't I stay for just like a week? Kylo opens his eyes as he looks back at you. You already have too much influence over me. I am weak when I'm with you. He shakes his head as he moves a little ways away from you and rolls over onto his back. This was a mistake. No, it wasn't. You say immediately as you prop yourself up on your elbow and roll over onto your stomach to face him. No, it wasn't a mistake. You can feel tears brimming in your eyes now, and your voice is bordering on unfamiliar hysterics. Kylo turns his head to look at you, but all you see is pity in his eyes. 1 week, you tell him. Please, just give me some time to... Time to what? Kylo asks, as if he really wants to know. Time to figure this out, you say softly. You scoot closer to him and run the tip of your nose against his cheek, softly nuzzling him, trying to ease the distance between you. When he doesn't respond, you kiss his cheek with soft, placating kisses, trying to urge him on. He finally sighs and rolls over a bit to face you so that you can kiss him back, and you smile as you tenderly brush your lips against his as you offer him slow, gentle kisses, using your tongue to trace the outline of his full lower lip before you pull away. You can feel him shudder as you do so, and he rolls over to face you completely now, running a hand up and down your arm. This is too complicated to figure out, he tells you softly, but you just shake your head. That's what I thought too, you tell him, but it's really, really simple. I want to spend every minute of every day just lying here with you. But I can't. So, all I'm asking for is 1 week before I go back to Annie. Will you please grant me that much? Just 1 more week with you? You can feel your heart shudder in your chest, and you know he's affected by it by the way he has to look away. Don't you feel that? Don't you feel how much I want to be with you? You shouldn't, Kylo says softly. Now you're being selfless, you demand incredulously. You can torture, kill, and maim thousands of people, but suddenly when it comes to me, you're defenseless? Yes, Kylo says so loudly and immediately it startles you. Yes, you know the effect that you have on me. I am bound to you. I am bound to your light. I feel it constantly calling to me to come back to you ever since you left. I am tormented by it. I have tried everything in my power to break free of it, to surrender to the dark side of the Force, but I am tethered to you, and there's only one way to end my suffering. You feel the realization settle into your chest like a weight. Snoke wants you to kill me. I want to kill you, Kylo emphasizes. In order to give myself over to the darkness completely, I need to let go of everything that is holding me back. And that means me? You ask quietly. That's why you need to kill me? It's why you need to get as far away from me as possible, he tells you quietly. I'm being torn apart and I want to be free of this pain, but I don't think that I have the strength to do it. His eyes flick back towards yours. That's why you need to leave, before I change my mind. I can't, you exclaim, putting your hand on his chest, but he only offers you a sad laugh. Whatever you have planned isn't worth it, he tells you. They may have Hux cornered, but the First Order will live on. Snoke will make sure of it. He is using you, you tell him. I know you can see that. The only reason why you're being torn apart is because you're doing things you don't want to do for him. You are strong, Kylo, and you are smart. Surely you must see that. It's too late, he says, shaking his head. The minute I drove my lightsaber through my father's chest, I knew there was no turning back for me. Before there was at least a chance, but now there's nothing. But there is, you insist. That's why you still feel drawn to me, because there is a way out of this, and you can take it right now. We can get out of here, go grab Annie, and leave this whole thing behind us. Forget the First Order, and forget the Resistance. We can escape all this and live on some little planet all on our own. You push against his arm suddenly. We can do this, Kylo, but I need you to help me. He just smiles at you as he brushes your hair out of your face. I have often dreamt of that, he admits, but too much has happened. It cannot be done. But it can? No, Kylo says firmly. I must finish what I started here, and I cannot let you dissuade me. You close your fingers around his wrist. Fine, you say firmly, although your voice still wavers, but I am staying at least for a week. If I am never going to see you again, I want to spend as much time with you as possible. You keep saying a week, he says cautiously. Why is that? Because I doubt you'd let me stay here for a whole month, you tell him, quirking your lip up in a gentle smile. And I think Annie would miss me too much by then. You press a quick kiss against his lips, and he seems to relax as you cuddle into his arms. You rest your head against his chest, and he tucks his chin over your hair, gently stroking his fingertips down your back. How is he? He asks quietly. We haven't done any Force training with him yet, you tell him, but he's doing good. He loves to watch me and Ladson spar. Some nights he won't go to bed until we go a few rounds. He's not really a fussy eater, which I'm thankful for, because the resistance food is, quite frankly, not that good. He plays with my staff a lot now, but he likes to hit things with it, and it gets worse when he's in the middle of a tantrum, and then he's just trying to smash and destroy everything near him. Kylo lets out a soft chuckle, and you hit his chest lightly. Hey, it's your fault that he's like that. He doesn't get his anger from me. Are you sure about that? Kylo asks softly, and if you can read his tone right, almost teasingly. No, you admit after a moment. He has your dark eyes and your dark hair, but I can't help but see you whenever I look at him. You can feel tears well up in your eyes now, and you don't want them to come, but you can't stop them. I try to keep myself busy, and sometimes I'll take a walk around the base before I go back at night, just because I know when I see him, I'll just see you, and I don't know how to handle that. Kylo tightens his grip on you. If it makes you feel any better, if I could take it all back, I would. I would never have pursued you back on base. That only makes you feel worse. Only for your own benefit, you say idly, because then you wouldn't have been bonded with me. You'd be free to be as dark as you want to be and destroy the galaxy, and I would have been able to move on with your life without being reminded of me, he finishes for you. You close your eyes and shake your head. The Force brought us together for a reason. The Force gave us a child together for a reason. Maybe there's a larger plan at work here that we're not in on. Maybe there's... A prophecy? Kylo asks. They said the same thing about my grandfather. He shakes his head. If you stay, you are only going to tempt me. You can't help but lean back and grin at him. And why'd you have to say that like it's such a bad thing? He cups your face as he kisses you gently, but there's a force brewing between you, a sense of urgency and passion, and you reach up and brush your hand against his scarred cheek as you kiss him back fervently, trying to push all of your emotion for him into one kiss. 1 week, Kylo finally relents as he pulls away. 1 week, Kylo, or 1 week, you repeat, and then I'll stay away from you for good. I'll take Annie and run to the furthest corner of the galaxy, and you will never see or hear from us ever again. He takes your face in both hands as he presses a firm kiss against your forehead, and you close your eyes as you relax into him again. 1 week, you repeat silently to yourself, and then maybe you can see Annie for yourself.